Hi, welcome to Brainstorm, a podcast about writing, genre fiction, and moral quandaries. I'm fantasy author Clifton Hill, and I'm fresh out of neurons. In episode 10, we discussed my thoughts on Marvel's Infinity War and why it had a major story flaw. I was invested as a kid in the Marvel Universe by collecting multiple comic book series that still sit in boxes stored away growing dust to this day. And I also lament the slow progression of Kip the Quick Book 2. Now, on with the show.
I'm going to talk about the Infinity War, the latest installment in the MCU by Marvel, and the infinitely slow progression of Kip's return, Kip the Quick Book 2. Alright, so here I am, September 2018. I released Kip the Quick Book 1 in May of 2016. And it is over 2 years later, I am still slogging through the sequel. I am about halfway through going back over the text yet again. I am probably, I would say most people would probably call this about maybe the third draft or so. I don't really consider it done until I've kind of paved over those plot holes. So for me, I'm about halfway through going through it, so I'm about halfway through what I'm going to kind of consider draft one being done. So I hit another tough point where I have to make some hard decisions about how to make things happen. But there's a lot of good stuff behind me. There's a lot of good stuff ahead of me. There's a couple more plot holes to get through, and I gotta break out my steamrollers and get going. So, 120,000 words. This is now getting close to 3 times as large as Kip the Quick Book 1. Gonna be very excited to share this with you. I just can't wait to get it done. Got this young adult novel, more for kids, but it will be kind of focused on kids. A quick read that has been brewing in my mind. I have 2 young children myself, 7 and 10-year-old, and so these things, I guess, perhaps happen when you have kids. You start thinking about some story ideas that might appeal to them, or at least that you might be comfortable sharing with them. So, really wanting to get Kip the Quick done, and can't wait to share. So, moving on. Just saw Avengers Infinity War. I was anxiously waiting to watch this. I get a little frugal. We're busy, so getting to the theater's not really an option. Didn't really want to blow the money on watching it online. I knew that Netflix was not going to be showing it for free. It was not part of their agreement with Disney. I think Black Panther, if I recall, was the last of the Marvel movies that was going to be making it to Netflix under the current agreement ending, I think, end of this year. So I also broke down and rented. Let's see. Yeah, I broke down and rented, paid for Thor Ragnarok. Paid for it on Amazon or Google Play, one of those. Did the same darn thing for Black Panther. Not too long after it popped up on Netflix, naturally. Money well spent. I enjoyed both. And, of course, once those were done and out of the way, I felt less guilty about Avengers Infinity War, since I was going to have to pay for that in some way or other anyway. So, watched it, enjoyed it. I've been a fan of Marvel Comics for years. I collected the Avengers, Spider-Man, Hawk and Dove with DC. That's digressing. Oops. Okay. So, anyways, back to Marvel. Who else did I collect? Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think there's a couple more that I'm forgetting about right now. Oh, yes. The New Warriors. Yes. Which I think I had all of their initial run before they, I think, eventually got relaunched later on. And for a Spider-Man, I had, I think, about quite a few Spectacular Spider-Man, Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane, The Web of Spider-Man. I don't think any of the Amazing. I saw him doing drugs in one or two of the issues and thought that was just weird and didn't get into it. Anyway, so a fair bit of fan, know some of the fan lore. Oh, right, and I was especially looking forward to Infinity War because, in part, I had was it called the Infinity Watch? The series of comics with Adam Warlock and I don't know, maybe this was all involved in the Guardians of the Galaxy, but no, I don't think so. I think there was the Infinity Gauntlet comic series, something like that. Anyway, Adam Warlock, the Gemstones, Thanos occasionally came in there, and there was whatever her name was, Moondragon, and so on. So I knew a fair bit about some of the background. At least I fondly remembered quite a few aspects, and was really anxious to check out the movie. And it didn't disappoint. Thanos was a great antagonist and protagonist. Perhaps you could almost say Thanos stole the show. My hat is off to the CG team that handled bringing him to life. They did a fabulous job. I know he's CG. You can tell he's CG, but at the same time, you don't think about it at all because it's so well done. His mannerisms, the dramatical presentation is superb. So great mocap, great CG little touches here and there to make it all come off, and the voice acting was superb. And of course, I loved all the favorites, Thor and, all the actors playing the various favorites, Iron Man and so on. Now, one thing that's interesting to me that as a writer, as a story creator, is there's a major fallacy here, a major thing that really kind of sticks out like a sore thumb in a overly tight Infinity Gauntlet. It is Thanos' motivation to, this is going to be a spoiler, but hey, Thanos is up to bad stuff, so if you haven't seen it yet, it's not going to mess anything up. He wants to kill off half of the universe's population. And I have to say that his presentation of this, his heartfelt conviction that this is what needs to be done, it sold me. It really did, yes. But then when you step away from the movie and really kind of think about it for a second, it doesn't make a lot of sense at all. I mean, this guy's been trying to make this happen for decades. He's been doing it on small scale for decades or longer, at least, right? He has a sob story as to kind of why he's personally motivated into doing this, and he seems to think it makes sense. Overpopulation robs the resources to allow people to have a full life. And yeah, absolutely. On Earth, even we're right now, these are topics of the day. Overpopulation is something that people predict will happen. And what will it do to us? These are very real problems. I guess that's probably part of one of the reasons why it makes it so relatable. To kind of feel real. But, okay, so he snaps his finger, half the population dies, And then there's basically going to be anarchy for, probably 10 to 15 years at least, depending on the advancement of each individual society as they, recuperate from these devastating blows to their, you'll be losing scientists, you'll be losing people that can, operate, machinery. You'll be losing just anyone and everyone. And yes, you might be able to have people fill in the gaps, but in some cases you probably won't. And you may have almost a backslide in some regards to things. And that kind of widespread death, and, if you can think about it from a context of modern day Earth, if we knew that, half the houses on our block were empty, or, probably less than that, I guess, go to an area where it's more likely to be bachelors, maybe condos, apartments in a city. If you knew that half of them were empty, there would be rampant, I want to say pillaging, because that's my medieval roots right there. There would be rampant rioting and just destruction all over. It would be terrible. In addition to all the death and the sadness and the loss from people at having these people suddenly not there, just with absolutely, no goodbyes. Can you imagine the rate of suicide that would go up in conjunction with that right after? If people were losing their spouses and their kids and their parents just without even any warning at all, no ability to say goodbye, just boom. So Thanos, in one single instant, would send the entire universe into just anarchy. And it would last for years. The repercussions would be felt for potentially, decades. But, he is only killing off half. So order will be returned in large parts. It may be different. It may secede from more civilized governments to more bloodthirsty regimes and despots and so on. Am I pronouncing that right? Is it despots, despos? I don't know. Anyway, it might go to a whole bunch of really bad dudes and dudettes. So there you go. All right. So we have some anarchy and a lot of sorrow, but at the same time, people will start having kids still. They'll keep having kids. And, if you've got an overpopulated planet, you cut it down by half, how long is it going to take to repopulate? 10, 20 years? 30, 40 years? So what you've done is you cause all this terrible stuff, and then you have repopulation, and then it gets maybe overpopulated again. So, what has he really achieved in the MCU? What has he achieved? Maybe 20 years of okay times. Maybe. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. So it flummoxes me that the writers and directors and all that think that that's a reasonable rationale. I give them total credit for fleshing out an antagonist so deeply, so thoroughly, and really, ultimately making it work. I think a lot of people were satisfied. I was satisfied with the movie. I'm just a little interested in that they didn't think about that part, and that Thanos didn't think about that part. For all his strength, for all his wisdom, for all his years, for all his power, for all his ability to amass, knowledge, for all his resources, just period. He should have known that this is a silly thing to do. People sometimes talk about a vengeful God, this is no knock against anybody's like religious feelings, but me personally, like if there's an omnipotent, omnipresent entity out there that could do pretty much anything, can see anything, I really don't see how they would care about trying to be petty, to enact revenge. And I'm not saying Thanos is doing this out of revenge. He clearly made that statement as it was like humanitarian, basically, is what he was trying to go for. But anyway, I mean, he's got a lot of power, and it seems like he should know a lot better than this. That this is a very short-lived, terrible solution. And then, again, the story writer in me wants to analyze the simple fact that despite this grave kind of error in logic, in motivation, in character, despite that, the movie still worked for me. Why? I want to ask why. What's the deal? And I think it's a few things. One, I'm highly invested in the series. I've watched how many movies with the MCU, all leading up to Thanos, wanting to see him wreak havoc, and hey, it lived up to that, right? Two, very strong character, great presentation. So it makes you kind of connect with him, makes you feel like whatever he's saying is real, or at least real to him. And so that works. Probably, again, presentation. We're not talking about some low-budget movie. We're talking high-quality effects. We're talking, great performances by the actors in general. We all have a vested interest in the existing superheroes and whatnot. And them reacting to Thanos validates what he's going to do, cements it in our minds. So while I don't think this might have worked as a standalone movie, as an introduction it works because it's a complement to everything that's come before, and that's interesting. It almost feels a little bit like you can say that you can cheat a little bit as long as you have a rabid audience and they're fully invested in whatever your work is. So, yeah. What does that say about the human psyche? Does it say that we're just a little bit, I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got for now. I'm going to keep pondering. You go keep reading and enjoying. And I'll talk to you later. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening, dear reader. Visit www.cliftonh.com, subscribe to my newsletter, and read my books. Reading is awesome.